10th of October. Today we want to review the storyboard. I'd like us to review whatever work we had, and then I'd like to brief you on the project so that we have a sense of direction. And then, of course, I will give direction for the character design. Okay, so just that. So let me say welcome. I hope the others can join us later. But for now, let's start with looking at the work which was done. I'll share my screen. I'll share my screen. Okay, so this is the mood board. In fact, if I look at the folder, which is for ideation here, you can see it's got all the folders, but what I'd asked you to work on was these idea boards. And I'm just looking at these mood boards to begin with. I'd open them out here. This is where we left it. So what I see is that nobody has added to this mood board. It still doesn't have stuff for scene 2 or scene 3. Now, I can't overemphasize the importance that we do something, however rough, but we have something to guide the mood. And then nothing here on Act 2 and nothing here on Act 3. So we need that. And here on the reference board, I'm just checking it out. They look empty from here, you see. Even if I double click on this, it's probably empty, but we need stuff here. So I'm emphasizing again here. This one here. And this one here. So I don't see stuff. So I need us to populate these pages so that we have something, at least to guide the story based on where we are. All right, that's just we can't move away from. So I need us to understand the stage we're at needs us to have at least, let me go back to the local folder here. So under ideation, we need to have the story worked out. And we worked out the story because if I go into this one, we have the synopsis, we have the scope of work, which comes from the brief, and then we have the actual story. So that's worked out. We're looking at variations to it. And my suggestion is, yeah, go in there and make comments on the PDF. You can add on notifications. If that's difficult, just create a Google Doc and make a comment by editing. All right. Let me show you how to do that in case. I just don't know if maybe that's the issue, but let me show you. If I go to story right here, supposing I want to make a comment on the story. This is the story I've clicked, the narrative. You just right click on this, open with Google Docs. So now I've done it. A Google Doc will exist on the parent folder here. It will come. It's creating it now. So this is the Google Doc. And on the parent folder, you'll see it here. The Google Doc is in blue, that one. Once it's there, it's there. So with this now, I can come in and comment on the story. So to comment on it, you click on still doing something, not fully loaded. Yeah, it looks like it's loaded now. So under here, editing, click on this, select suggesting. That's for comments. So I click on suggesting, and then you can come down here and suggest what it is you want to add. If you want to add a suggestion, add a comment here, click on add comment. But yeah, it can be anywhere, but this is the synopsis. Let's say I want to add it to the story here. I can click here and make a comment. So this is my comment that you want to make. And you can even come in here and type in what you want to type in. This is my addition, like this. Okay. And on my comment, I'll say comment to add it. So it's there. And this is my addition. It shows in blue, so it's there. Okay, so it's straightforward. It's like tracking changes in Word. And this document, I want us to feel free to add to it. In this case, I'll just delete this comment of mine for now. I'll also delete this one, delete, so it goes. All right, now the idea is simple, that we are co-creating the story. And I just want to mention that when you look at, just a comment that we've observed, if you are talking about, let's say, African stories, and we're saying that African stories, let's say, it's one school of thinking, are ancient, which means they default back to the time of our ancestors. You're talking of 100, 200, 300 years ago. Sure, we have African stories that are, grounded in history, and they date back as far as we can go, like that, based on the stories that are passed down through ancestors. So that's one, you can say, genre of African stories. But there's also the question is that, do we not have an African culture that's modern or that's current, that's based on now, how Africans or Kenyans behave now? What is the character of that, let's say, story? What's the character of the African now, you see? And are these Africans or us Africans different from people from the West, from the East? We have similarities, of course. We have overlap as well. And then we have uniqueness. So what's unique about us? You see. Now, why I'm talking like this is because even if we were to, let's say, if we were to now have or write an African story, what would make it unique? And then what would make it African? So I just want to suggest that one of the things that makes it unique is when the Africans weigh in on the story in the way that we think, and we add our ideas the way we see them and the way we view the world. Obviously, it's based on our perspective socially and environmentally. And there are many things that impact on us that make us see stories from that perspective. That perspective will not necessarily be the same as someone from New York, from, let's say, Rotterdam, from London or Berlin or Munich. It will not necessarily be the same. They'll be different because we're in different situations, different, let's say, locations. We're also in different social contexts. And that's now what we can argue is the Kenyan, if you like, component. Africa is a big place, so you can't really, and very diverse. So even talking of African is interesting because we're very diverse. But Kenyan, sure, and Kenyan itself is also diverse. But some of the common things that you can say characterize the African is the communal way in which we learn. We learn collectively. The goal for which we learn, which is to integrate into society. We need to be an integrated person. That's really what Africans aspire for. And the idea that we live for communal or, let's say, group or family or community outcomes. We live for that. And you see it in the harambes, the coming together during funerals, weddings, and things like those. This is something that's common within our culture. So if we were to, let's say, have a storytelling approach which integrates the ideas of each one of us, then you could argue that this is a communal or collaborative effort which is ingrained in the African way of living or way of life. The European, for example, is not communal, they're more individual, and they have embraced individualism, especially this generation, and not just this one, but the last few generations of Europeans. They're much more competitive than they are cooperative. They're much more individualistic in their outcomes. They also educate themselves to be self-governing as opposed to be integrated into a social context. So there are these kind of differences. And I'm suggesting that, if we were to say that ours is having a flavor that is communal, a flavor that is somehow socially constructed, then that kind of flavor will be more reflective of how we are on the ground. The way we negotiate scenes, the way we negotiate personas, the way we agree on environments and what we're putting in and what we're leaving out, how we arrange them, that's a negotiated exercise. It's not like we have one person coming in and doing it themselves. One person working solo, their ideas, their thinking, their inspirations, and whatever they include is up to them. It's more of the person in charge is coordinating everyone else and making sure that everybody is included and that the storyline evolves based on the input from everyone. That's really how it is. Okay, so one person can be given the job of writing it, but it's a coordination exercise and it's still a communal exercise or collaborative. So I'd like us to see it like that, and especially if we want the outcome to be African, which I think is what we would want for this one, for the EcoTales. We want to tell a story by Africans, for Africans, and of Africans. It's somehow democratized like that. And we've discussed the target market or target audience. Age is the Gen Zs, but community-wise or ethnicity-wise, we're talking of Kenyans, but it can scale to beyond Kenya. But we're talking of East Africa, maybe Eastern, Central, and Southern Africa, like that. And we're also talking about the idea that the story should be based on narratives that we can push out online on social media or on an interactive comic. So the idea that we're going to engage Gen Z within the context that we're talking about, that's really what we're saying. Okay, so if that is understood, then I hope you see the need for us to come in and push in our ideas, and beyond that, we also would like to co-opt other people. But what we need to have the core done, get it approved by the client, and then beyond that, we now move on to um, testing. But when we're testing, it's really also asking people what they think with a view of incorporating their ideas. That's really what that is. I hope it's understood so that we see the need for story writing together, brainstorming together, storyboarding together, and even scripting together, and what will come thereafter. It's a collective exercise. All right then. So if you have things you'd like to discuss, feel free. I'll take any questions if you have them at any point. Yeah. So the next thing I'd like to do is to have Purity take us through the storyboard. She's done it, and I'd like us to look at it briefly so that we get a sense of what it feels like. I'm not sure if you can hear me now. My machine seems to be hanging. Can you hear me? My machine seems to be hanging. I'll give it a minute, but I'll join with another device. Okay, I've joined with another device. Let me know if you can hear me. Are you there? Okay. Can you hear me, Purity? I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, it seems this other one has crashed. It's okay. I'll use this one. So, yeah, why don't you then go ahead and tell me? Maybe you can share with us. Storyboard. You can share the screen and go. Okay. You can go through the storyboard. You can share on your side. I can. I can hear you. You're able to share your screen?
Okay, you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can
Yeah, we
see
can see
Act
Act
2.
2.
So we've
So
done
we've
Act
done
1
Act
last
1
week,
last
right?
week. I don't know, like two weeks ago, yeah. We
All right.
did Act 1.
Okay.
Okay. Act 2, it's Echoes of the Ants. So we start off with the camera panning across to reveal the other side of the city that has, of the downside that has been turned into a city. Yeah, we do have the downside side, and then there's this city type like city where where Shiro and the family live. So we have the camera panning across that city. Yeah, and then we get to see Kolo uh, who is running towards the shark, and then he's carrying a jar. And then this jar from Act 1, he had collected ants and put them into this jar. So he's running home with the jar. And then as he's running, we see Shiro, who is staring at him as he runs towards the house. Yeah, and then he gets to Shiro, who gives him this eye, raising an eyebrow, and then she goes, "Where's your brother?" And then Kolo stops. He replies, I don't know, he's probably still watching the ants. Joro was left in the dump site watching the ants. And then you go, ha, yeah, ants. Kolo hides the jar that he was holding behind his back at moment. And then he answers, no, seriously, something about how they separate recyclables, compost, and trash. So he's talking to her about what he and his brother Joro had seen back at the dump site, about how the ants were so good at separating their trash and everything. And then saying that the sister Shiro doesn't believe this story, he turns and runs off. And then Shiro is left there just staring, totally unimpressed with the whole story. And then we get a cut into this into the house. Shiro is doing house chores and like cooking. And then in there she gets like, okay. So with this, from this point, I did. hmm, Okay, yeah. I kind of adjusted the story because it wasn't introducing Juma a little bit clearer into the scene. So I adjusted the scene, and then at this point, Shiro is distracted while she's cooking. She hears the sound of rustling plastics, as if someone gets into the house with these plastics. Turns out the dad, he walks into the door with this gunia of plastics, plastic bottles, and everything. So he puts down the plastics, the gunia of plastics, and then turns and asks, "How is my daughter doing? You look like you had a long day. Hope your brothers were not too much." Shiro just laughs it off and then stands up. When aren't they? We get a zooming of her face and the expression she's making at that same moment. And then Juma goes, "You know, who knows where we would be without you? Your mother would have been so proud of you." So in this point, we get the dad talking to Shiro about their mother and how he wishes the mother was there and all the things the mother was doing for them. Then Shiro gets in and talks about how she doesn't like any of the current life they're living and how she just wishes everything would just go back to normal. So we see in this scene, after that talk, the camera zooms out to reveal images of the family hanging on the wall. So in this particular scene, in the story, it was talking about Shiro removing a photo. I don't know where she got that photo, but then all of a sudden, in fact, according to the script, she had a photo in her hand, and then she was like looking at it. It was the photo of their mother. So for me, I was like, hey, she just has this photo that we don't know where she got from. So in this, I decided to like when they're having this conversation of about the mom and everything, we get the camera zooming out, and then we get to see on the walls they've like hanged pictures of the family, and one of those photos is that of the mother. So that moment where like Juma is saying, "I hope we could go back before the rubbish," and then he pulls in to hug Shiro. And right that moment, you have ants falling down all over them, and then they pull away from each other, and then Shiro goes out, drifting apart, and then she starts running off, trying to like brush off the ants and everything. Juma follows her, and then the camera pans as it follows their movement out of the house. And then as they get out of the house, Shiro sees Kolo, and then she goes, "Kolo, I'm going to kill you." So Kolo in this position at the top of the shack, he starts rolling in laughter, and then he falls down to the floor. And then right in this panel, Shiro goes at him, and then he's like, we have the faces of both Shiro and Juma, and they're like really furious. So according to the script, you're supposed to have like a split screen of both their reactions, both Shiro and Juma. So that's what that is. And then we see Shiro furiously charging at Kolo. Kolo gets up while laughing. They chase at each other, and then the camera pans out following their movement. And then it cuts off, and then we introduce to the dump site at night. At this point, it's dark, so we get a wide shot view of the dump site, and then there's just inspectors moving around. There's movement in the dump site of like Munga's people and whatnot. So we see Mr. Munga kind of elevated, and he's talking to his team because we've received reports of unauthorized activities around this area. So the boss wants 30K. We need to make sure they don't get any ideas that could ruin our operation. So we get this zooming of Mr. Munga talking to the people, and Miss Chebet standing next to Mr. Munga. So after the instructions, we see these inspectors going around people's houses. So it's going to be like different screens of like split screens of these inspectors and what they're doing. Some are collecting money from the people in the streets, some are going into people's houses, knocking and everything. So at that moment, we see Njoro, who is now working to go back home. And at that moment, he spots an inspector harassing a woman in the streets that night. So he gets to a ground and stares at what this inspector is doing. Yeah. And then the screen cuts off to Juma and Kolo, who are seated. So also in this panel, it was in this panel where Juma is seated, the gunia of plastic bottles that he had come in with earlier is what he'll be sitting with in this point. He's like trying to separate these cans that he had. Depending, I don't know how you're going to put it. Like, in my head, that's what he was doing, separating the cans in the gunia while talking to Kolo. So in this moment, he goes, we'll start by setting up bins for recyclables and compost. Let's get a schedule together and see how it works. If it proves effective, we can get more people involved. Yeah, that's another view of him doing the separation. And then Kolo goes, we should also spread the word and we will march like the ants and take over the city. So that's the point he's saying that as he gets on the chair. Yeah, and then his dad goes, no, my son, maybe we can even make a small community project out of it, get everyone invested in keeping the area clean. So he's saying that as he gestures Kolo off his chair. And then Kolo is standing there and then he says, you see, my son, garbage isn't to be thrown just like that. That's how dump sites become like this. And as they're talking, they get interrupted by a knock on the door. And then Juma, he's talking about the mother and how she used to like she used to get into that whole business of separating plastics and glass and metal when they are interrupted by this loud knock. So we see Juma walking towards the door, Kolo just seated there. So as he's getting to the door, Mr. Munga barges into the house. And then it goes, good evening, we've been informed of some unusual activity in this area. So behind the door is Mr. Munga and his team, and they're standing outside. So we get that zoom in of the team and Mr. Munga himself. And then Mrs. Shabbat goes, Juma, you know the drill, come here. As she says that, these two men barge in and then they drag Juma outside the shack. Juma is all like, please, police. Yeah, we were supposed to change this police depending on the discussions we had to like not involve the authorities. But I worked with the older version, so it should be something else that's not the police. So please, police, it's just me and my son. So Juma's face tightens. He glances at his son, realizing the gravity of the situation. The authorities have come for a bribe. However, he doesn't want Kolo to find out. So he willingly, putting willingly in quotes, he walks out with his people. And then they're there. Yeah. So Mr. Munga knows. So you two have been busy. Try to explain what you've been up to. Have you forgotten the deal? You want to live in our dump sites. If you want to live on our dump sites, you have to pay. So they're having this whole conversation, and as they continue the conversation, they hear some movement behind some trees, some bushes there. So this was also another part that I adjusted with this how the script was going. So with the script, they kind of introduced Njoro into this whole part, of which I do not know how he ended up being a part of this scene when we had left him walking home at the dump site. So I don't know how fast he got here. We're like, because yeah. There's a part that talks about Kolo and Joro staring at what these inspectors were doing, while in real sense Joro wasn't there yet. So, but in this version, I put him like when they hear this, yeah, they hear some movements behind some bushes, and then they all turn to look at who that was. And then Mr. Munga notices him, and he goes, "There, get him." So they see a figure running in the darkness, and then these people jump out and then they start chasing this person. So they chase him, but then Joro, doing all his stuff, he manages to escape, and then they don't get him. So at that point, when that chase is happening, Kolo manages to like sneak out, and then knowing where the brother Joro was going, he heads off in the same direction. So we cut off to this scene where the both of them are seated in this field. This is also another scene that we had talked about adjusting, because Nicholas had said that there's like some sort of cut and foreshadowing. I really don't know, because he's saying like we're going to be like talking to be seeing these boys in the field, and then again we go back to Mr. Munga who is talking to Juma at home. So I don't know. So I focused on this scene where they're like the both of them are in the field, and they're like having this conversation about what they had seen, about how things were going and whatnot. So as they continue with the conversation, their sister Shiro creeps in on behind them, and then he overhears this conversation, and then yeah, they continue talking about the whole ant system, and then Shiro remembers the ants that Kolo had thrown at her and the dad. So they talk, yeah, and then she leaves the boys to like continue with this the whole conversation, the plans, and what they're like they wish to like do despite everything that's happening. So they finish up and then they start walking home. And as they walk home, they see this car that rushes past them. It was Mr. Munga's. So the dark silhouette of Mr. Munga's vehicle drives past them, leaving the boys with a glow sense of purpose and a looming threat of opposition. So the camera pans out to the dump site. Darkness covered the dump site area with minimum lights. The scene fade out, leaving a sense of tension. So, yeah, this act ends with like this view of the dump site. Yeah, with like barely any lights, showing us what like how it looks like at that point, and then the scene fades off. Yeah, that's it with Act 2. If there's like any questions.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
I thought
I
that was
thought that
quite
was quite
comprehensive.
comprehensive.
But
But
Tim,
Tim,
were you able
were
to
you able
follow?
to follow?
I don't know if you
I
were
don't
able
know
to
if you were able
follow.
to follow.
Yes, I was able to follow.
Okay. Do you have
Okay. Do you
comments,
have comments,
ideas?
ideas?
Right now,
Right
the
now,
storyboard is
the
being
storyboard is being
written, and as you
written,
know, the
and as you
storyboard is
know, the
actually the
storyboard is
blueprint
actually the
for the
blueprint
actual
for the
production,
actual
and
production,
it's built on the
and
script, which is built
it's
on the
built on the
story. So,
script, which is built
but
on the
now
story.
what we are
So,
doing
but
is
now what
casting it
we're
in
doing
stone.
is
So,
casting it in
the
stone.
ideas
So,
that we put into the
the
story
ideas that we put into the
are
storyboard
somewhat,
are
um,
somewhat
you know,
um,
like scripture.
like
It's like
scripture.
the actual
It's
thing. This
like
is what
the
we'll
actual
produce.
thing. This is
So, if
what
you have
we'll
ideas
produce.
at this
So if
stage,
you
it's
have
very
ideas at
important.
this
If you have
stage, it's very
things you'd like to
important. If you have
suggest to
things you'd
make
like
it
to suggest to make it
come alive, then
come
that's
alive,
that's
then
that's important.
that's important.
All right, I understand. I did come in a bit late because I was having some technical difficulties. So I didn't really get a lot on the first part, but maybe once the document is shared, I'll be more than willing to share my view on most of it. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah,
In fact,
that's all right.
it's
In fact,
shared.
it's shared.
It's in the video,
It's
but
in the
I'll show
video,
you
but I'll
again
show
where
you
the folder
again
is,
where the folder
and
is,
the folder
and
is
All right.
the
in the
folder is
group as well.
in the
So when
group
you
as
go there,
well.
you'll be
So
able
when
to
you go there,
see
you'll be able to
the
see,
storyboard
yeah,
folder.
it's a storyboard folder.
So let me
So
comment
let me
in a big
comment
picture
in
sort
a
of
big
way.
picture sort of way.
First of all, I think
First
it's
of all, I think
comprehensive
it's
because
comprehensive because
Purity has followed the
Purity has
script
followed the
quite
script quite
exactly. But
exactly.
now that we
But
see it
now that we
visually,
see it visually,
um, you get a sense
you get a sense
more of how watchable
this thing might be.
Now, from the client's perspective, we've got to make the message the hero. Whatever message he has to be the hero of the whole show. In other words, things are winning. The heroes, the protagonists are winning, the antagonists are losing. It's all around the message. That really has to be how it is. If there's a high moment, we associate the message with that high moment. If there's a low moment, then of course that has to be what we're trying to avoid. That's the problem. So that kind of constructive alignment is what I think we need. It's not very strong. It's not very strong, right? But we need to bring it out. Very strong. But I don't mind. I don't mind the progression because now Turushi has given us a visual impression of how it's flowing. So now we can see where are those emotional beats. And that's what we need to make it more emotive. We need to make it more emotive. And it has to go from one emotional beat to another. And there are some things when people are watching movies we can't do, and some things we shouldn't do. For example, if we make this is almost like this scene seems to me to be about 4 to 5 minutes. But if the whole 5 minutes is highly emotive, that's not good because people can't stay on an emotional high for 5 minutes. People can stay on an emotional high for 30 seconds, and even that can feel long to some people. Then they need an emotional low, and the low can last longer in the sense of calming down, staying down, and then you use the moment as anticipation for the next high, and we go like that. So that's one of the things we have to be wary of. We have to ask the question: where are the emotional highs? Visually, of course, it's audio visual. So we want the audio and the video or the visual to make it emotionally high. And then we fix those, and then we agree that they should be roughly 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute apart. We have to make it work as per the theme at that moment. That's one. So that's the second thing is that people get tired or bored if it's repetitive in a predictable way. All right. So some of the elements which are repeating or somewhat it might be the action that's repeating, like a lot of walking, a lot of talking heads. Those sort of things we have to break that so that it's not feeling repetitive. Okay. But at the same time, you don't want it to be the opposite, where it's overactive. You're cutting too quickly and things are happening so fast. It's like a fight. You don't want it to be like that. So that is tempo. And we need to work out that tempo so that the whole thing is flowing in a way that is not boring, but constantly keeping people interested. And that's the third thing. Keeping people interested. People are interested when you make them anticipate what's coming. You make them ask questions like, what's next? If that's constantly happening every 10 or 15 seconds, what's next? And the kind of second guessing what's coming, then it will hold their attention. Of course, that what next should be in a path along the storyline. And the storyline is actually the vehicle that's carrying the message. So the message is not heard, is not felt if the storyline is not there. So the storyline is carrying the audience attention and taking them on a journey. And it should be structured in such a way that it holds their attention. So we constantly make them anticipate. Use continuity to keep that anticipation holding, and then a high moment. And then another high, and those are small highs, a big high, we hold, and then we come down. And as we keep down, we start building anticipation. And that anticipation, the audience should feel is there. Even if they can't pin it down, they can feel something's amiss or something's about to happen. And it builds that anticipation. Still calm. And then, of course, it now comes to a high. But the high we start climbing. We start climbing. It hits the high. We hold the high. And then it happens. The message is being passed at those moments. In the highs, the message is being passed. In the moments, we now calm down again. Oh, sorry. I was talking, and you couldn't hear. Or could you?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hear me when I was talking. Even now you can hear me.
Yes.
I've got 2 mics. Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm trying to give you a
So I'm
sense
trying to
of
give you a
rhythm and
sense of
so
rhythm
that
and tempo so that we can
visually
now
craft this.
craft
So
this thing. So
just for
just for
advice,
advice,
animators are storytellers.
animators are storytellers. Essentially,
It's
they're
only that
storytellers. It's only
our
that
medium
for telling
is
stories is
visual and it's
visual
using
and
movement.
it's using
So we
movement. So
specialize
we
in what
specialize
you
in
we
what you
specialize in the
we
simulation.
specialize in the simulation of
So it's
movement.
all visual,
So it's
but it's
all
not real
visual, but
movement.
it's not real
Simulated.
movement. It's simulated.
So that's where our
So that's where our storyline,
specialization comes.
specialization
But
comes. But
essentially, we're storytellers.
storytellers.
In other words, if you
In
tell
other
a
words, if
storyteller
you tell a storyteller to tell a
they can tell
story,
a story
they
with
can tell a story with
they can tell
words,
it with
they
thoughts,
can tell it
they
with
can tell it with
thoughts,
humor,
they can tell it with humor,
dance.
they can tell it with dance.
Essentially,
Because you're a storyteller, you can implement in these different ways.
But animators
uniquely specialize in telling stories using movement and
visual
you could say visual stories because of the simulation of movement.
But because of the nature
of animation, the digital format we're using, but because of the medium, it's synchronized with sound.
Right? So rhythm and tempo for most, I'd
say half the animators, not most, but half.
Rhythm and tempo
are
absolutely
the most important animation principles.
So rhythm is when you decide where you're going to place your emotional beats. So in a minute, like now, Purity stopped for 5 minutes. In a 5 minute sketch, like what she's done,
we need to say have 10 emotional beats, and that's just an average. It can be 15,
can be even less.
It can be even less.
But I'm just giving you a rough.
So in that, there should be like 10
animation.
Let's say animation beats.
Those are animation.
Not animation, but emotional moments. Okay.
The emotional moment
itself is not significant
what you're doing is
tempo. You just need to identify it. It can be an emotional sad moment, an emotional happy moment. It can be an emotionally shocking moment. Whatever. There's so many emotions, but as long as it's there, we identify.
For every emotional
moment,
there are at least one
or two, three,
let's say.
You can use the rule of 3. So 1 to 3.
You can say
sub-emotional moments.
And those sub-emotional moments,
it's like when you're climbing a hill and you come to a mini peak, and then you go to another mini peak which is higher, and then you come to the main peak at the very top. It's like that. So
we use them as
animators, those emotional mini moments to build up to the main one. So they're aligned. It's not like if you're trying to shock someone,
then you have to work with the
mini shock moments
to create
the real shock.
And it's like a rubber band.
Sometimes.
You know, a rubber band.
You want to go one way, so you pull it the other way.
You want to shock people.
So you make them relax. You make them think everything is fine. And then suddenly you shock them.
That's what I mean.
You have to know what it is that you want, and then you emphasize it using an emotion that is at times at cross purposes with the main emotion. So this is the kind of thinking.
Now, this can't be done in a way that
is going to disaffect the audience. In other words, you can't shock them so out of their minds that they can't watch anything. That would be counterproductive or counterintuitive.
You also can't let's say keep them so
anticipating so much
that
it's just too much. It's too much. They even stop watching.
So you can't do that.
On the other extreme, you can't bore them to death
with repetition,
with slowness,
with obviousness.
I mean, they just see that this one.
You don't want that.
Want that. So
finding that right balance, where do you space your emotional moments?
That is rhythm, and that is a skill of storytelling.
Tempo is
to do with the mini moments.
It's how you enter
into that
emotional beat.
So
now we know where the beat.
But how you enter into it?
Let's say the first one. Is it going to be that
we'll use
the counter message?
We go in the opposite direction. It's very shocking. So we'll go the opposite.
Calm things down.
So that the moment we introduce the shock, it's a total
Nobody
shock.
expected.
Nobody expected. Are we doing that?
Or are we building up in
a direction that everyone knows what's going to come, and then it comes?
You see? People appreciate both. All right? And they're different ways. So other times you can keep people guessing the whole thing. They don't know what the direction is until after.
Then they look back and say, okay, we get it now. That was two opposites clashing. And now we see.
Mini moments
are the opposites, and then it clashes and produces the high moment. Things like that.
Okay, so we have to
now problematize this story like that,
so that we visually tell it. Now, how do we visually tell
a high moment?
there are some rules.
There are some rules.
In cinematic language,
for example, you see the scene that Purity has. She has a medium shot.
And these guys are not
looking at us to begin with.
Now, if this was a high moment, a medium shot
would become a close-up.
Shots are more emotive
when they're close-ups.
Okay.
Then you focus on what it is. If there's a bad person in the scene or someone you want to portray as bad,
and you want people to
feel that person's bad.
If you focus on their
eyes,
and it's a close-up,
we
will get to know
that they're bad. But then you can problematize that further. You can make the shadows in the eyes deep,
so that the guy looks sinister. You can make them frown.
So that they look like they're up to something. They're angry or they're very moody. You can do things like that.
You can blur out the surroundings.
So the focus on the eyes is very strong. See, you can do things like that if that's what you want to do.
But now
it's a close-up because this is a high moment, and we want to
make it very
emotionally dangerous.
If it's an exceedingly
happy scene,
okay, then you want
happy movements.
You want happy movements.
And then you also want.
You can still zoom
into happy faces. You can also do that because when you zoom in, it has the effect of accentuating that feeling. So if it's a happy one, you can zoom into that.
But people see happiness
also in gesture. So if there's a lot of happiness, there can be a lot of movement in terms of the body, like dancing or moving in that direction.
Again, it's up to us.
We just need to be clear that we're focusing on something and then we're building into that.
Okay.
So
in the sketching
or in the camera view, cinematically, the view matters.
If you have a situation where
someone is dangerous, the audience has to feel danger.
Then you want an
eye view perspective in a close-up. In other words, it's like we're under that person and that person's above.
That gives that person
some kind of
you can say
power over us.
We are the ant.
And that person is above us.
If we are above them,
and
looking down on them, and that's the camera angle
you've chosen,
it gives us a
vantage point that is more godly or more.
We have more knowledge.
We have more knowledge. We kind of have a superior vantage point.
We know things they don't.
We know things
they don't even know we're here.
They don't even know we're here.
We're
looking at them from above.
That diminishes them
and makes us more important.
So if you want that,
then that's how you do it.
If it's a normal eye view,
just a normal eye view,
people don't associate anything with
normal.
They just say that's normal.
There's nothing special. There's nothing special.
Okay.
Lighting is another.
I like this dark
background in a way because that's how lighting works. It brings in heavy contrast so that we can focus on what we want to focus on. So what's coming up next is rewriting this or revisualizing this story in a way that brings out, you can say, the rhythm and the tempo,
so that we can see
at least the animators can see in every panel how they're going to treat it for
movement. And if there's
an emotional moment in the panel, they can see what it is clearly.
And then, of course, with the animation layout,
they'll be able to know that here
are going to treat it
like this or like that. They'll know just based on the drawing. So we need to do that.
Now, the second way
in which animators will tell you you've got to work on this is by the emotion content itself.
There are some animators
who swear by rhythm and tempo. That's timing. The other animators who swear by emotional appeal. Emotional appeal is the content.
And
people tell stories from
one
dramatic moment to another. They're very focused on emotional appeal.
Okay. That
means the expressions on the face matter.
Posture of the person
matters.
Camera angle
that brings out all that. It matters.
Things like that. But now you're focused
on the mood that you're creating at that instant around the acting.
That mood matters.
Even the background plays a part with the lighting and everything.
So when we say we're going
from one emotion to the next,
if you're looking at emotional
then you want to really
focus on the drama. For example, if someone is lying, and this is an emotive moment, you want to bring out that lie. You really want to bring it out. And if someone can see that you're lying, and that's the next emotional, and they're very
disappointed or very disturbed, you want to bring that out.
And we go from emotional appeal to emotional appeal. So those are the emotional beats. To give an example, Disney, all their cartoons
go from emotional appeal to emotional.
So that's how Disney works.
Disney
would break up his
pipeline into
emotional appeals. And that comprises the storyboard. So he has a storyboard.
He has a storyboard. Then he has a beatboard. The beatboard
just showing you the emotional beats. You know, like every minute there are two emotional
and
then he works on
that.
So if someone's crying, he's going to really emphasize
the crying.
If someone is panicking,
he's going to really emphasize
that. And they work
like that even up to today.
If you take the contrast to that,
I'd say is manga.
Manga are not so. They don't work on
the
emotional appeal directly. They work more
on the
rhythm and tempo. How long scenes are held. What scenes are held. How you enter into the scene. That's tempo.
And how you leave the
scene. They emphasize more of that.
These things are intertwined.
It's just what you emphasize. Even though manga are doing that, there's still some emotion there. But it's just that they bring out the emotion is using tempo and
with
emotional appeal
and the content of it.
That knowledge that there's some drama is brought out in the animation itself. And even though it's being held on the scene. But the emphasis is now on the storytelling around the movement itself. See, that's the Disney method. So and the other methods as well. And then you can mix it up. But you have to have a clarity when you're at this stage on what you're doing really. For us, because we're not doing this for ourselves, but even if we were, I still think for discussion purposes it helps. But we're doing it for a client. Client wants to see something. And we need their approval. The client basically accepted to do this work. But they want us to show them something every week. I've had a meeting with them, and they want us to show them something every week. And they're not just saying to show us fun. They want to feel reassured that it's going on the path that they would agree that this is okay. So. For example, if we were to show them a storyboard, we can explain it. If we were to show them a beatboard, which shows all the emotions, they can appreciate that. A beatboard will not show tempo. But an animatic will show also rhythm. Animatic, so we can show that. These things we can show them on a weekly basis, and they will now feel that this is now going in the direction that. But they can also weigh in. Put things in front of a client, they will weigh in. They'll start saying, change this or add that, and things like that. So I kind of like where we are. It's because the story now has some flesh. We now need to give it some you can say taste. So that it now feels like it has the drama. Now, once we have the drama, once we have those emotional high points and it's working, emotional low points, we also have the beats worked out, the rhythm worked out. Once we have all that done, then the next thing we need to do is to ensure that the client's message is synchronized with those high moments. And the counter message, if you like, is synchronized with the low moments. However we do that. See, that's the communication exercise. And what I mean in the overall big picture is that the client's main message, big picture, we've got to create a sense in the audience of education. We've got to educate them about the problem of littering. So we've got to tell them there's a problem here. We have to look for moments that are low. These are the low moments emotionally, but we associate them, let's say, with the problem. These are the high moments. And these high moments we associate them with trying to overcome the problem. The problem will be overcome eventually. We're trying to overcome in these high moments. Something like this. It's an oversimplistic way of looking at it, but really that's literally what we have to do. So we need to now take the message and map it onto what's going on. So there are some moments that Purity has presented where we can go through the garbage sorting. Sorting of garbage, talking about the details. Like blue goes, let's say, organic things. Green goes with certain things. There's yellow, which goes with something else. Plastics, maybe. That kind of sorting hardcore in the message. Deadly boring for an audience. But if we're in an emotional high moment, the audience is in the moment because of the emotional high. And at that point, we have to
figure out how to pass the message.
The client won't.
The client won't. The audience won't feel it's boring if we do it well.
The message is coming.
The message is coming. That's fine.
They're not in it for that.
They're not in it for that message. They're in it for this drama, and this drama is interesting.
It's just that they're synchronized. It's almost like
we want a child to eat, let's say, vegetables.
Make them tasty. Yeah, use some flavor. The flavor is not actually healthy.
Maybe.
But if it's not unhealthy,
it's not poison.
Then add the flavor.
The
child finds the
vegetable tasty and eats the vegetables for the taste.
But actually, it's the vegetables that helps the child. Not the taste. But they're eating it for the taste. It's like that. So in the emotional high, we pass the message. This is a skill, by the way. It's a storytelling skill that you need to have if you're going to be to monetize animation. That's the only reason we got this job is simply because of what I'm telling you. We're able to take drama, use that as an instrument to pass a message that's very complicated to an audience that's very particular. The Gen Z, they're very particular. You see. So now that's what we have to do from this is storyboard.
So this is storyboard version 1. Purity has shown us scene 2 or act 2.
We'll look at act 3. We now need to
get into this and start crafting
what I've just explained. Emotional beats. All right. We need to determine them.
And they're there already. We just need to be clear about them.
And then identify sub-beats
that lead into
so that we can build
tempo, and then we craft a storyline with those sub-beats.
Now the emotional highs are
as important as the emotional
and they work together.
You have a high and a low, then a high, then a low. They work together like that. So we need to be wary of it.
We need to agree
on how long in the story we're holding them in highs and in lows,
bearing in mind
the capacity for anyone to stay in an emotional high that you're giving them. You see?
So all these things,
they're all tactics of telling stories.
Okay, if you understand what I'm saying,
then the next exercise would be to have a storyboard that is version 2 that reflects all that. But
questions or even ideas. I'm open to
what you have to say. If you have ideas on what we're discussing, feel free. Even Purity, feel free. You can suggest what you'd like to suggest. I wanted to talk about that, but that's the end of the rant.
You have anything to add?
On that, Purity?
No, good, thank you.
All right, and Tim,
anything?
No.
Okay. But I hope you understand.
So
in this project,
I'll explain more about the project at the end. The role of the director of animation is to
this is the role
of the animation director. So
I'm directing
it, but you're helping.
You're coming in as
assistant director to help craft the storyline.
And what I'm trying to describe
a job that's like this one, which has a client who's paying
and a message to
deliver.
We have to
see how to fit it.
One of the big problems
to the Kenya film industry. I just want to use this opportunity to explain the problem, which I don't want it to come into the animation industry. But it can easily come in. Is that
the filmmakers
don't problematize their
drama and align it constructively
with the message.
So you can watch, for example,
a film which was funded by, let's say, on condoms. Those ones are many. So you have the use of condoms for family planning. Now, we understand that message is family planning, and you have these condoms. You're trying to get people to change their culture and start using these condoms.
Being funded properly. Now you've made a movie out.
If you watch those movies,
you'll see that the drama is quite
detached from the message.
So there are moments where you're having this drama, and then there are moments where you're onto some
demonstration on the use of condoms,
or some explanation on the importance of using condoms, or some narrative about, let's say, family planning. It just breaks out into that. So suddenly the immersion of the movie is lost. You are in the story. Now you're just out in the middle of the movie. And yet it's
a well-funded production.
You can tell from the
lighting, from the camera, the quality, and everything. It's well-funded. The actors even are good.
But the story
is not aligned to the message. So So
even in situations,
in situations, in some cases where you see there's an effort to align them, it's not convincingly done. So the audience is able to see a separation between the message that you're trying to pass and the drama of the story.
And when they
lose the immersion,
the story loses
its flavor. It just loses the interest.
So I think that
we need to
learn from that.
We can learn
and
from
then
that.
try to
And then try to
make it less obvious.
In that way,
so that it's
clear to the audience that
the best would be
the best would be
the message was necessary
for this drama to come out. That would be the best.
Like
almost like
conjoined.
Conjoined. It's like
one needs
the other. So
if that can happen,
excellent. Okay.
Right. So we can
proceed. I think Purity, just take us through the next one, which is Act 3. Act 3. Take us through that.
Okay, while she's doing that,
I just want to make a comment. There were some things that the client has observed, and they say, okay,
they don't want anything
with authorities or government, partly because it will introduce issues which are political, possibly. They don't want to have that. And secondly, there's a lot of things going on in the government right now, at county level as well, that are now necessitating licenses or tax. For example, as we are talking right now, there's an eco tax, and now they've changed the name to an eco license.
That's a license
for
environmental
work. So
that license,
nobody really understands it well right now. But the government's introducing it so that anyone who is spending money on environmental work
has to pay a license.
Has to have a license.
So that is happening.
And
so the client doesn't
want a production that might
either
attract
or even be banned because of the license. Anything like that. So they want us
to stay away from controversial things. But controversial in the sense of the
So the mention of the word
authorities.
Purity pointed out
police.
Those words
may have to change. So instead of authorities, we can talk
garbage
gangsters.
We can come up with
other names. I'm just using that as a placeholder.
Instead of
police, we can call these ones
something like the
chokora something.
But these are people who can even be bad
people. Police
for
Kenyans are not good people.
For Kenyans.
For Kenyans.
So these guys might
be doing work
there, like police, but they're not seen as good.
So we can come up with a name for them.
And they will be have to be problematized
in a way that they don't look like police. They won't have uniforms.
They will not
officially doing anything. They'll just be like
let's say it like that.
Just
coming around like
Mungiki.
So that's how
we will handle those guys for sure.
I'll tell you more about the
clients at the end, but let's see Act 3 and then we'll get back to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Purity.
Okay, so Act 3, Shadows of the Hidden Truth. That is the name that is to be changed, apparently. Anyway, so we start off with a view of the sharks. We are still in the side of the city that has been converted into the side of the dam that has been converted into a city. So we get a high angle of these dilapidated sharks. It's in the morning. Then we get into this house, Shiro's shack, where the family is gathered all around the table. At this point, discussing their waste management plan and what they are planning to do and what they are supposed to go on involving this whole project. So at this point, they're discussing and looking at blueprints of their plans and everything. So we get this view of Shiro. Yeah, she goes, Joro Nicolo, I hope you behave today. last night's visit from the authorities wasn't just a coincidence. They're not just here to ask questions, they're here to spy on Dad. And this will save the dump site. Oh, and this while saving the dump site is just going to make things worse. So she's talking this as she looks at the paper on the table. So we get a view of Njoro, who is replying to her. Then he goes, "We'll have to be very careful. If what Dad is proposing is causing this much trouble, then there is something they don't want us to find out. But with what I saw how much the ant system can help, we can make a real difference if we can just get everyone involved." Yeah. So Kolo chimes in and then trying to lighten up the mood goes, "Yes, we need to continue with our plan, ensure the effectiveness of our methods, and rule the damn city," he says jokingly. And then the camera behind Juma focused at the whole family. Njoro goes, we can already start separating the waste and setting up the compost. We just need to keep pushing forward." So they're talking about what they have already done and what they're planning to keep on doing for the whole management system. And then we cut off to the dump site where there are officers and there's gangsters looming all around this dump site. And then we see again Mr. Munga talking to this team and then goes, "I want this entire area cleared out, no more unauthorized activities. We need to show what we are handling. We need to show that you're handling things properly and that we won't tolerate any disruptions." So this act did seem to have like a couple of loops, because again we get parts where the script introduces whole different new characters, and then it seemed like the continuing is just like we knew these people, but then it's kind of they're being introduced for the first time, but how the story is progressing, it's like we've known them like way before. Yeah. So there is a part that introduces this guy, Mr. Leon, and then he's talking with almost the same authority as Mr. Munga. So I didn't understand how. So at this point we have Chebet, and then she goes, "Yeah, we've secured the perimeters. No one gets in or out without our say so. If those kids try anything, we'll be ready." So the loophole here again. So we have Miss Chebet talking about how they have secured the whole perimeters and that nobody that is unauthorized can get in. But then continuing in with the story, we're going to find out that the boys actually do have access to the to the dump site, and then they still continue to do what they're doing. So even though they had already talked about them not allowing any people that might disrupt the whole processes, we still have the boys coming in, even though they've clearly shown to be their threat, in quotes, their threats. Yeah, so I don't know. So back to the shack again, we see Shiro talking to the boys, and then she goes, "Be careful out there. If the authorities catch you trying to implement your plan, they might come down hard on all of us." So we see the camera revealing Kolo and Joro preparing to leave, focusing on Shiro, visibly anxious, as she gives Kolo and Joro a final warning. So yeah, we get this shot behind Shiro. So Kolo goes, "We'll be cautious. We're just going to check on the compost and make sure the separation is working." Joro replies, "We have to keep up the work. It's the only way we'll prove that our system can make a difference." And then we see them walking off. So back to the dump site again. We see the boys approaching the dump site, and then they walk to the point where it appears to be their compost setup. So here they're looking at this setup, focusing on Kolo and Joro as they carefully check their compost setup, making adjustments to them. And then Joro quietly goes, we need to stay focused. The more effective we show our system to be, the harder it will be for them to ignore us. So you gotta focus on Joro's face as he speaks quietly, serious and focused. And then Kolo goes, I just hope we can get enough people on board. If we can show that our methods truly work, it might be harder for them to shut us down. He says that, gesturing towards the dam site and the people. And then we see this big guy approaching, his shadow totally looming all over this place. And then he approaches his figure. Yeah, he casts a shadow on the two boys. And then with his guns again, he goes, you two, don't I know you? What are you doing here? What makes you think you have the right to disrupt our operations? His face showing anger and disdain as he confronts the boys. Joro gets up quickly and then he goes, we're just trying to make a positive impact. We've seen how effective this system can be and we want to help. Yeah. So we get this low angle on Mr. Munga. He goes, you're interfering with the larger process. If you keep this up, you might find yourself facing more serious consequences than you're prepared for. So he's reacting really harshly, his voice dripping with contempt as he warns the boys about their interference. So at this point, he's talking this harshly, but he's looking around to ensure nobody else is listening to what he's saying. So right at that moment, we have these goons. They all of a sudden get into this compost and then they start knocking things over. They destroy everything the boys were working on. And then Mr. Munga goes, make sure everything that's set up is removed. We can't have their ideas spreading further. They're a threat to our operation. So at this point, I put in Mr. Munga, but according to the script, it talked of Mr. Leon. So yeah, that guy appears from nowhere and then he's like giving instructions and everything. So I just sent it to Mr. Munga doing the talking. And then, yeah, he instructs everyone to destroy everything. So we get this view of Shiro and Mr. Juma walking into frame. And then Shiro goes, stop, you can't just dismantle everything we've worked on. We are making a difference here. Juma adds in and he goes, we have a right to clean up our own environment. We have no authority to destroy our work. So as they say all this thing, nobody else is listening. These goons continue with the whole destruction process. Yeah. Mr. Munga delivers his final warning to Shiro, his expression cold and menacing. This is your final warning. Cease all activities immediately or there will be consequences. So he says that as the whole setup is destroyed, they're leaving everything in pieces. And then they just walk off after the destructive work, leaving behind a scene of chaos. The boys and their family stand among the debris, their expression filled with defeat and uncertainty. So at this point, Joro is just on the floor. It has already gotten dark, and then the dad is just there trying to talk to them. Then Joro goes, we tried so hard, and what for? They just tore everything down. So we get this shot of the dam site at night, illuminated by dim lights, casting long shadows over the wreckage. Yeah. And them talking about how this day has failed, about how the whole process, the whole energy, everything is going to waste. We see this car approaching, and yeah, it's Mr. Munga's car, and then he goes, keep a close watch. They're bound to try something again. We need to be prepared to deal with them swiftly. And then the car rushes off. They all just stare at it. And then later they go back to just sympathizing with themselves. And then we get this shot of them at home. They're sitting. Again, it seems like they get a whole new perspective. And even though everything just, it kind of felt like a fail, at this point they're seated at this table, they're thinking about how they can try again. Shiro is like advising them to not just give up and they should get back and try to look for different new ways as to how they can get back on track and continue with this whole process. So Njaro finishes up saying, "We'll keep pushing forward. There's always a way, even when it seems impossible." So as they look out at the darkened downside, the sense of hope is tinged with the weight of the challenges ahead. The authorities remain a looming threat. So we just left with this view of the family kind of looking defeated, but not completely done with, because there's still that hope of like wanting to get back up again. Yeah, end of the scene, end of the act. That's it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
yes, we
Thanks
can.
for that. I think
Thanks
that
for that. I
was
think
also
that,
good.
that was
Yeah,
also
we can
good.
hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments, Tim,
Any
on this
comments, Tim, on this one?
No comment.
one?
Okay.
So I
So
also like
I
it
also
because
like it
it's
because
following the
it's
general arc
following the
of the story,
general
so
arc
it's
of a
fine.
story, so it's fine.
The climax is not
The
very
climax is
strong
not very
in this,
strong
and
in this, and
from the context
from
of,
the
let's say,
context of,
episode
let's say,
one,
episode one,
Act 3 should be
Act 3
climatic.
should be
There
climatic.
should be a
There should be a
climax of
climax of climax
of climaxes
of
in Act
climaxes
3.
in Act
So
3.
that seems
So
to be
that
not there.
seems to be not there.
So we need to think it
So we
through.
need to think
And
it
then
through. And then
you see,
you
in the
see, in
resolution
the
of that high
resolution of that
climax
high
comes
climax
now
comes
the big
now the
idea,
big
the big
idea, the
solution
big
of the
solution
client.
of the
You see?
client. You see?
So the main message
So
of
the
the
main
client is
message of the
delivered
client
in
is
Act 3.
delivered in
Although
Act 3. Although
we have
we have
snippets of it
snippets
being
of it
delivered in Act
being
1,
delivered in Act
Act
1,
2, but
Act
Act
2,
3
but Act
now
3
has the mother
now
of
has the
the
mother
main
of
message
the
being
main
delivered.
message being
So
delivered.
that seems
So
not to
that
be very
seems
strong.
not
It's
to be
there,
very
but it's
strong. It's
very
there,
quiet,
but it's
very
very
subtle.
quiet, very
It's not
subtle.
powerful
It's
enough.
not powerful enough.
But we need to have that.
But
So
we
there
need to
needs to be
have that.
that
So there
build up,
needs to be that
and then
build
there
up,
needs to be
and
that
then there needs to
climax,
be that
and there needs to
climax,
be that
and there needs
delivery
to
of
be
the
that
message,
delivery
the
of the
main message
message,
the
the main
client is
message
trying
the
to send
client is trying
here.
to send
I
here.
just want to repeat
I just want to repeat for sake
because the
of
client
argument, because the client
needs me to
needs me
explain to
to
them also
explain
what
to
I'm
them
saying.
also what I'm
Is
telling
that
them.
the
Is
main
that
message
the
for Act
main
1 or
message for
episode
Act
1
1
is
or
that
episode 1 is that
we
we
are trying to
are
show
trying to
that
show
garbage
that
needs to be
garbage needs
organized.
to be
That's
organized.
what we're trying to say.
That's what we're trying to say.
And it
And
starts with you and
it
me.
starts with you and
That's
me.
what we're trying to say
That's
because of
what
the
we're trying to say
advocacy.
because of
So
the
the
advocacy. So
education
the
is how do
education
we
is
organize
how
it
do we
in
organize it
these colored
in these
bins
colored
for
bins
different
for
materials. We need
different
to bring that
materials.
up.
We need to bring
And
that up.
then
And then
it starts with you and
it
me has
starts
to
with
come
you
out
and me has to come
that
out
we need
that
to be the
we need
ones
to be
doing
the
it.
ones doing it.
So I
So
can see
I can
opportunities
see
for bringing out
opportunities
that
for
message
bringing
because
out
these
that
guys are
message because these
defeated.
guys are defeated.
We can make that
We can
defeat
make that
around
defeat
this issue on
around
the main
this issue
message
on the
not
main
being
message not
accepted.
being
Why?
accepted.
And we
Why?
leave
And we
audiences
leave
asking
audiences
themselves, why are
asking
we like
themselves,
that?
why are we like
Why
that?
don't we
Why
accept
don't
to
we
organize
accept to
garbage?
organize
And yet it
garbage?
looks like a
And
very
yet it
good
looks like
idea,
a
but we
very
have to
good
have
idea, but we have
convinced
to
them
have
it's a good
convinced
idea.
them it's a good idea.
And then we leave
And
them with
then
this
we leave them with this
question, maybe.
question,
You see,
maybe.
this is how we
You
can
see, this is how we
problematize.
can problematize it.
So
So
so that's going
so
to be
that's
the
going
deal
to be
maker
the
for the
deal maker
client
for
if
the
they see
client
that's the
if they
message
see
and
that's the
that's the way we're
message and
treating
that's
it.
the way we're
And
treating it.
now
And now
the question they'll ask
the
me,
question they'll ask
and now
me,
I can talk
and
about
now
the
I can
client
talk
issue.
about the client
The
issue.
client's been
The
asking,
client's been asking,
okay, so we start,
okay, so we
but
start,
they're
but
very
they're
nervous.
very
This whole
nervous.
thing costs
This
them a
whole
lot of
thing
money.
costs them a lot of money.
And it's not
And
money
it's not money
in the way that we see
in the
it.
way that we
The
see it.
client is
The
called
client is called
Skuma Twende Trust.
Skuma
You can
Twende
Google
Trust.
them.
You can Google them.
Skuma Twende
Skuma
Trust.
Twende
They
Trust.
are
They
Hindus,
are Hindus
and they have
and they have
money that they
money
contribute
that they
for social
contribute for
welfare.
social welfare.
So the money per se
So the
is not
money
the
per se
issue in
is
the
not the
sense of
issue in the
we
sense of
have to look
we
for it,
have
we
to
don't
look
have
for it,
money.
we
No,
don't
it's
have
not the
money.
issue.
No, it's not
The
the
issue
issue.
is
The issue
that
is
the impact
the
will not
impact
be
will
felt.
not be felt.
They're using
They're
community
using
money
community
and they have to
money
account
and
for
they
it.
have
It's
to
more of the
account for it. So it's
accounting
more
for
of
it.
the
You can't just
accounting for it. You can't
spend
just
community money
spend community
on
money
an exercise
on an
that
exercise
sounds
that
nice, it
sounds
feels
nice,
nice,
it
but
feels
actually
nice,
it's not
but
nice
actually
because
it's
it
not
doesn't do
nice
what
because
it's
it
supposed
doesn't
to
do
do.
what it's
You
supposed
see,
to
they
do.
can't do that.
You see, they can't do that.
So they're asking,
So
okay, so
they're
it
asking,
sounds
okay, so
nice,
it
it
sounds
feels
nice,
nice,
it feels
but
nice,
is it
but
going to do
is
what we
it
want
going
it
to
to
do
do? And
what we
what they
want it
want
to
it
do?
to
And what they want
is
it
to
to
bring
do
about
is to
social
bring
change.
about social change.
Okay,
Okay, that's what they want. Now, the social change that they have accepted is to educate Generation Z
on
on need
to stop littering.
Why they should stop littering. So in other words, on one hand, there's a big benefit to the environment if you stop littering. If you carry on littering, it's dangerous to the environment. That's the education.
And we do it over a series.
They've accepted the series.
Now, the second thing is
they're saying we need to make them advocates of the message, own the message, so we don't have to keep on doing this. At some point, it becomes natural for them to stop littering.
So that thing of
Generation Z telling Generation Z itself, stop littering, and this is the reason.
So those two things. Every episode
has to come out with a deliverable like
education
and advocacy. Okay.
So if we can maintain that,
the way I'm saying it, because they're accepting it now,
their
members of the community
will also accept
because they've accepted it now, and they'll accept it as we progress. They can see,
this is the advocacy.
This is the main educational message. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, like that.
If they find
that's what we're doing, they'll accept.
And if it's acceptable,
in terms of messaging, they can weigh in, but they'll accept.
But then the last thing is
that they want to see impact.
So we have to do
baseline surveys
to find out
what is the educational level of our audience.
It's a research exercise.
Okay, that will do.
And then we do endline surveys.
That means once we're done and we release it after a period, which we'll specify, we'll go and do surveys again,
and we'll see how
they're receiving the message.
To see to what extent
it's impacted
on their knowledge. That's the educational
part.
And then on their behavior, by transforming them into activists
for change
against littering.
So we have to measure that.
Now, if we find there is some movement, the movement needle moves in a positive direction.
The client says that we can make a case to do episode 2.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Because they'll accept
to fund it.
If they see that there's no movement, we'll have to explain why. If there's negative movement, we'll have to explain why. But
negative movement
will come with a challenge.
Because
it just means that
the ideas we're using were not working, and we have to
show what we're changing in our ideas
to make them work.
Having
identified why they're not working.
See. So there'll be a bit more work.
if it's negative impact. But if it's positive impact, that's possible. Carry on doing what we're doing. It's only that now we
come in with let's say story that will make it work for episode 2. So that's the whole thing. That's what I've discussed with the client, and the client is now saying we start. So they're on board for episode 1, and we need to work in the way that I'm describing. Now, for me personally, I think this is good. On one hand, I think, and we all have reasons why we do what we do. I just want to explain a bit about our company's position and our studio. So animation started in. If you want to be strict about it, it started in 1993 when we put out the first animation for TV. But back then it was focused on advertising. And we ran the advertising rounds until we got to a point where I realized that. For many reasons, it wasn't for me a place that I'll be playing for long. Because of the goal in advertising. Advertising is a cutthroat business where people are in it for money, they can get out. And it's purely that. So it's dog eat dog world. You're hyper aggressive, you're hyper competitive. It's all about maximizing on profits and making money. So it's for people who like that sort of thing, it's nice. But for me, I felt that there was something there that creating more poverty in our country. There's something there that wasn't even addressing the issues in this country. Or even amongst our people. Forget the country, but even just in my own life, our own lives, there's something in that kind of behavior that doesn't address what we're doing. If you're on the right end of it, you make a lot of money because that's your goal, just to keep making money. But even individually, it's not fulfilling. You can't live a life that chases money like that. It changes you fundamentally. So I found it was troublesome when I thought about it. You can do it for a while, but it reaches a point where you find that life has to be more than that. When I look at this one, the direction we're going now actually is one of social impact. And we're looking for the indicators. Where do we get money from? Who is willing to participate in social impact projects? So we have this client. Other clients also who are interested. So that's the direction.
direction we're going.
But what I like about this,
one is that if we succeed,
we bring about
transformative change that brings about the
ground game that we need in this country. And then it's not challenging or changing, an insignificant group in our society. It's changing generations. And it's working with urban people. And those urban people will impact on more rural people. And at the same time, the younger generation. So this is having a possibility of transforming our country quite fundamentally. So in some ways, this to me is striking me as very different from the advertising rounds, which is hyper-competitive and very capitalistic thinking. This is more, I think, relevant. So the more we succeed here, the more we're changing lives for the better in our context. Why I say that is that the Chinese, the Americans, the Europeans would not see this problem. They don't have not the way we have it. But they will not see it unless maybe we tell them. So they're not inclined to fund it. They'll fund things that they see because they have that problem in their country. So they also fund it here. So I kind of like the idea of Kenyans for Kenyans working on the ground to improve our condition and trying to make things better. So that drives me on this project a lot. The fact that we have a paying client is important because of sustainability. So what I'll do for next week, I'm going to put together the pre-production activity sheets. I'll show you what they look like. But activity sheets are things like we need a call sheet. I need to identify who's doing what on the whole production. Just pre-production, we have to identify who's doing what. I'll give everybody contracts so that you can now know what work you're supposed to do and how much you get for that. I'll also prepare schedules. A schedule will just tell you the milestone events, the moments when you have to deliver your work. And we'll keep meeting on Thursdays so that we can. The purpose of meeting is just to share what we've done. And if there are problems, we discuss. But it's not to do work as such. We'll be doing work away from here. Some of the activity sheets will be to do with layouts, instructions on things we need. So we have to, like we're all working on different characters. So you need instructions for that to harmonize it. When we're building scenes, several characters can be in a scene. So we have to have layouts show you how to bring together those scenes. So I'll prepare those documents. That will help to harmonize. But those are technical. They even are necessary when we're doing production. So now I want us to focus on creating a beatboard for this, so that we can go from emotional beat to another emotional beat, and then from there we do the animatic. Okay, so we need to next delivery. It's good. Purity has done this. The next delivery will be a beatboard based on emotion. I'll try and put together a video. I'll put together a bit of this. I'll take a few panels, make a few. I'll make a few beatboard panels like this. It's like a storyboard. Now going from emotional beat to emotional beat. I'll do a few just to guide you on what I'm saying we need to do. Using a video. And I'll make it available for you to follow the steps. And then you can pick a scene that you can work on and see if you can produce a beatboard on that. So that's the kind of thing that an animation director does. But it's good for you to learn animation direction also, especially if you're going to produce work, even your own work, to understand how this thing is broken down. So I'll produce something, then I'll share it, and then you can use that to produce scenes yourselves. In the meantime, what I'd like is for us to work on the characters. If we can work on the characters, that will be good. Have you been able to install DAZ, Tim? DAZ. Have you been able to install the software called DAZ Studio?
The studio? No, I haven't, but I can install it after this meeting.
Okay. Install that one. I'll give you some. Yes.
I'll give you some videos.
I'll give you some videos.
Yeah, just to help you.
Yeah, just to help you to get started.
And then also
some tutorials. I'll give you some of that. And
the
then
critical thing
the
with
critical thing with
DAZ
DAZ is that it has access to a large library of characters.
So I'll look for free
library characters for you to choose the character that you
would work with.
For
example,
we have Kolo. So Kolo, let's get him. Let's find him on DAZ.
All these guys
will be wearing the same clothes for the whole episode. So
maintain that.
That's not going to change.
But let's find Kolo. Let him be someone who is, and you can say, for example,
Tim, you work on Kolo.
And once you found him, DAZ is good because not only does it have that library, but it also has a way by which we can change the features, just like we were doing with Fuse. And then it also has
capacity to pose
so we can
the
pose
character.
the
So we can pose the
in
character
front
in front of the camera in 3D.
So those kind of things
are helpful
when at least doing a
character model.
So next week,
my
request is
I'll assign all of us a character.
I can give you Kolo,
but I can give everyone a character.
Or I can ask you to
choose your character. Maybe I start with that. You choose a character.
And then the others will choose.
And then
present our
character
as post sheets.
So post sheets
are your character
posing in 3 ways
that they appear
in every act.
So we have 3 acts.
Those are 9 poses.
In Act 1,
Kolo is running, he's jumping, he's playing, he's laughing. So pick a pose that you feel this will be a good one to show.
But he appears like
that. So in Act 3. So 3 different poses in Act 3.
3 different poses.
3 different poses in Act
2 and 3 different poses in Act
for your character. So the pose sheet has 9 poses.
These poses can
be from any
but
view.
You want there to be
a kind of rhyme and a rhythm.
You don't want to have one is tiny, one is big. They're all the same size, same character. So people not focused on the size. They're focused on the character and trying to get a feel of him. From your post sheets,
we should be able to know this character type. We should describe his personality just from your character sheet.
Then come the character
models. Now, the character models are only 3.
One is full frontal.
It's a front view. One is a 3/4 view, and then the other is a side view.
That's
the
those are the views. Now, if you do that next
using your 3D,
then what will follow from that
is we will cartoonize them. But I'll show you the method we're going to use to cartoonize them.
And this method is going
to use AI. So this AI software, which I've seen, is fairly advanced, and I think
it's mature in a
way that we can use. I think
because why I say that is
that we need to cartoonize them in a way that we can animate them.
To animate them,
it means that it has to be very precise. Every time we cartoonize the character, it has to be that way. It can't be suddenly the treatment changes or
let's say something is added,
like a finger is added. It can't be like that. It has to be consistently done in a way that is predictable and we can control.
So I'll show you how to work
in a controlled way using AI to cartoonize them.
Then we benefit from
the kind of palette cartoonizing the character that comes with.
It'll help us with the comic.
And even the memes. I think
the comic is
really helps.
So that'll be next week.
I'll take you through the cartoonizing of your character.
Once we've cartoonized
the character, by then we should have storyboards that are
emotive.
In terms of
next week you should have
emotional storyboards.
And thereafter we should have storyboards in which the message of the client is mapped to the emotions. Right? So we'll discuss it. In some cases, in the extreme case, we'll have motion graphics to interrupt what's going on. Motion graphics is just an interruption, like an ad almost, but it comes in to show this should go here, this should do that. But we have to discuss it in a way that we don't break the immersion of the audience. So they're always in the story. But that will be the subject of the following. So next week is on the storyboard is to make sure that it has the treatment I'm talking about. I shouldn't use the word treatment. It's the emotions and emotional appeal that we want. So it's a question of timing versus emotional appeal. We want to make that happen. And then thereafter,
we want to
introduce the message
by way of
mapping the message with those high points and low points. Once we do that, we're good. And by then the character now should be cartoonized, which means we can move to the. Of course, we can move to the animatic anyway. You don't need the cartoon for that. With the cartoonized character, we can move to the comic, and we can start working on the memes in terms of layouts. And we'll discuss. So that's the kind of flow of the work. Okay, but next week I'll give you contracts just to show you what you have to do, how we're going to go about so that you have a sense of the work. It's generally 3 months. It's generally 3 months of work. This project is 3 months to produce a 13-minute episode, and we'll discuss. But feel free, even as we're together, you can ask any kind of question that you have. Anything you'd like to ask, or anything that maybe is not clear? Tim or Purity? Purity, you have anything you'd like to share? Or to add? I don't hear you. What about Tim?
No, everything is good on my end.
Okay. If you have anything, feel free. And if you have anything you'd like to discuss on the chat as well, feel free.
I'm good.
All right then. Okay, guys. So I'll end the meeting, and then thanks, Purity, for the presentations. And just for clarity, just before we close, I want to suggest that next week we have emotional beatboards for Act 1, 2, and 3. And so Purity, I don't know. Are you in a position to work on these beatboards for next week, or you don't think you'll be able to work next week? Or even on the character? Are you able to do that? Purity? Yeah, I don't hear you. Yeah, somehow the voice is not coming. Yeah, now I heard you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. I just wanted to know if I should assign you work for next week. Your voice has gone again.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you saying. Can you hear me? Yeah, you're quiet. You're quiet. Maybe you can type in the chat. Okay. I don't hear you, Purity. So maybe we can say. You'll tell me. Maybe you can tell me if you can't type it here or speak. Then you can tell me on the chat on WhatsApp. But we need to assign ourselves this work. I will do some stuff also on the storyboard so that we can get those beatboards. I will share the link with the video with people so that you can see how I'm doing it. And then you can go ahead and do something as well. It's very good and I think important. This is how the crux of the story is made in pre-production. That's really when the animation is made. And once you do this pre-production, even if we sent this work to Korea or even to Singapore or China for that matter, and Japan, those animation studios can animate it. You see, but the crux of it is in the pre-production. So if we get the pre-production done, we don't even have to do the production. But I'd like us to do the production so that we build capacity for it. See, but it's a very important stage.
Prof, what is the name of the software you wanted me to download again?
It's called DAZ 3D.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Okay then.
Okay then.
So next week, work on the characters. I think everyone work on the characters. I'll work on the storyboard.
I'll work on the storyboard.
Then I'll share with you. You can also join me in that. And then we proceed. We'll meet again next
We'll
week.
meet again next
So
week.
let me stop the recording.
So let me stop the recording. I'll share this
The others who didn't come.
video so that the others